Since childhood, I've been different from others. I suffer from a rare condition that gives me an abnormal craving for relations between men and women. Later, I married a husband who was addicted to gambling. He lost every bet he made, and we could never save any money. When he was young, he had one hand chopped out for stealing, yet he never learned his lesson. To make money, he forced me to receive clients on a cruise boat. This way, we could earn money and barely relieve the unspeakable pain caused by my illness. Exhausted laborers became my regular customers. One day, a thin man with glasses heard about me from his coworkers and came out of curiosity. But he was different from the others. When he saw me, he looked at me with sympathy. He said he couldn't bear to see me suffer like this, and suddenly said he wanted to marry me. Of course, my husband refused to let me go easily. He told me I was his property because he had paid for me. But even though I was naive, I could still tell who truly cared about me. I was willing to go with him. That night, the bespectacled man sat with me by the side of the boat and shouted toward the sea, venting all the frustration in his heart. He held my hand tightly and promised he would marry me and take me away from this sea back to land. Later, he really went around borrowing money everywhere, but when relatives and friends heard he wanted to marry a woman who serviced clients on a boat, they mocked him. He ignored their judgment. If one person refused, he asked another, until he managed to gather 70,000 yuan. He even took responsibility for raising my newborn child. We held a simple wedding on a small island. At last, I left the boat and set foot on land. But life on land was nothing like I imagined. We lived in a tiny rented apartment, barely getting by. Once, when I stepped into the corridor for some air, I frightened a neighbor's child. After that, the man with glasses worried I would cause trouble and no longer allowed me outside. He had no choice but to lock me inside the house. When my episode struck, I couldn't control my screaming. The neighbors grew more and more disgusted with me and eventually called the police. Some lonely older men in the building learned about my condition and looked at me with ill intent. The man with glasses gradually realized that I had lived on the boat for so long that I could not adapt to life on land. After much hesitation, he took me back to the boat. Unexpectedly, my ex-husband thought our return was troublesome. My illness flared up again. My ex-husband was now old and weak, and the man with glasses was mentally exhausted by me. Both of them could only watch helplessly as I suffered. The next day, they called a doctor who told them my illness was psychological and incurable. In agony, I nearly went mad and almost jumped into the sea, but the man with glasses desperately pulled me back. He tried putting on shadow puppet shows for me using a flashlight and pieces of paper. At first, I found it novel, but soon I realized it was just to comfort me. He even handmade a massaging device, but it broke after only a few uses. Nothing worked. He thought I was possessed and even invited a Taoist priest to perform rituals, but nothing changed. In the end, he discussed it with my ex-husband, and they decided to let me receive clients on the fishing boat again. This temporarily relieved my illness and allowed them to earn money. But the business was too conspicuous and was soon discovered by the police, who ordered us to leave and forbade us from continuing. My illness returned worse than ever. We could only drift at sea. The man with glasses came up with another idea. He dressed me up, rowed a small boat, and knocked on passing ships to solicit customers. Business was not as good as before, but at least we could survive, and being mobile made it harder to get caught. But deep down, I knew this life was no different from before. One day, while looking at my reflection in the water, I suddenly couldn't bear it anymore and jumped into the sea. Unexpectedly, the man with glasses immediately cast a large net and caught me firmly. At that moment, I understood. In his eyes now, I was nothing more than a tool for making money.